welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that would like to formally invite all Dodger fans to suck it. I'm Dallas, that's Matt, and that's Drew. And yes, we will talk about the highlight of the the baseball week. We'll talk about the Angels and Dodgers a little later on. We'll also talk about what's going on with our other favorite teams, how that relates to some of our other favorite teams like the Padres. We'll also talk about the Guardians and how they may be threatening in their division. But first, we are going to talk about a team that was at the top of their division and is no longer, the Chicago Cubs. So I want to start there because last week we talked about the Brewers, and we talked in depth a little bit about what makes them so good right now and what's put them on this path that they're on currently. And there's been a victim of the Brewers' ascent, and that is the Chicago Cubs. And so they were in cruise control in that division for most of the season, certainly up until the All-Star break. And then the train has just fallen off the track completely. They have won a very minimal amount of their last 20 games. When I put together our rundown a couple days ago, they had only won 8 of their last 20. And it came at the worst possible time because, as we all know, the Brewers went on fire at the same time. So now they find themselves in a really tough space in not only their division, but in the NL wildcard race as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Cubs. So what do you guys think is behind this skid for Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I just really quickly want to mention the actual craziness of this, because we can call it a skid for Chicago, we can call all these things. They've still been a good team, and I think that's kind of getting lost in how well the Brewers have been. I saw this tweet and I pulled it up here. So this was posted on August 10th, so a couple days ago. Um, since May 25th, the Cubs had the second best record in the National League, the fifth best record in MLB. They lost 12 games in the standings to the Brewers during that. They lost 12 games while having the second best record in the National League, fifth best in baseball, and they lost 12 games. It's hard to even call it a slump as much as just holy crap, the Brewers.
Yeah, absolutely. The Brewers deserve credit, and we did give them credit last week, and they have not lost since we gave them credit last week. So they keep on rolling. Right now, pretty easily the best team in baseball. But yeah, the Cubs have slipped. They're still the first wild card team in the National League as of right now. They're a half a game ahead of the Dodgers, 4.5 ahead of the Mets, who have really struggled lately. And really, yeah, like Matt mentioned, since late May, they've been a good team. They were obviously a good team in the first half. But I dug into some of the offensive players, some of their big contributors from the first half, um, and compared their numbers to the second half, and I found it's pretty damning results.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like exactly half. It's the All-Star break, so it's first half is longer than the second half by quite a bit. But let's start with Pete Crow Armstrong. I mean, first half he was an MVP candidate. He had a 132 OPS plus in the first half. It's down to 71 in the second half. Kyle Tucker had a 147. This is OPS plus for all these guys. 147 in the first half and 80 in the second half. Michael Busch, 157 in the first half, down to 55 in the second half. Carson Kelly, kind of miraculously, a 150 in the first half, down to 87 in the second half. Dansby Swanson, he was barely above average in the first half at 103, and now he's sunk down to 69. And then Seiya Suzuki, their DH, was a 139 in the first half, down to 82. So that's 6 guys who were big contributors on offense for them. A big reason why they were one of the best teams in baseball. All of them are doing from below average to well below average since the All-Star break. And so when that's happening all at the same time, it's just it's a bummer for your team. And, there's not much you can do about that. Do I think any of these guys are particularly cooked? No, not necessarily. I do think Pete Crow Armstrong's first half was kind of a mirage. I don't think he's going to be like an all-world MVP candidate type player because that's just not how he profiles. but I also don't think he's as bad as he's been playing lately. That can kind of be said for all these guys. So um, if you're a Cubs fan, I still think 2025 is going to be a good year for you. I think they should make it to the playoffs. I haven't really looked at their upcoming schedule, but I still think there's a good team here, and I don't think all these guys will continue to slump to this extent. And you don't want to run into them in the playoffs, I think. So I'm not going to hit the panic button, but the division is almost out of the question entirely at this point, which is crazy because they led for most of the year. Brewers have taken an 8-game lead on them. Uh, so, like we said, says more about the Brewers than the Cubs, maybe, but pretty rough look.
No.
Yeah, just a note on the schedule comment. They have 5 games against Milwaukee next week. And so, that's going to be, the Brewers can really put it away next week if they can come out on top of that series in any sort of, big way. The rest of the month looks pretty okay. Pirates, Angels, Giants, Rockies. So, for the Cubs, pretty favorable schedule overall, but those 5 games against the Brewers, it could be a chance for the Brew Crew to put it away as far as the division is concerned from there. But because that is the last time those two teams play each other. So the Cubs won't have a chance to get any of those back if they drop too many of them. So yeah, I just wanted to ask, when it comes to the wild card race, if the Cubs are to remain in the wild card race and that's their shot to get into the playoff, like where do you have them among those teams that are in that hunt right now? We can include, teams that are on the bubble as well, or, divisions that are close, without naming any names, no offense intended, but some divisions are pretty close. So we can include teams like that too. Where do you see the Cubs in relation to the rest of the wild card field if we think that that's what's going to be their ticket?
Oh, Matt, I think you're muted.
Oh no.
Sure was. I was gonna say, I think, from the very beginning, I was a pretty big fan of the Cubs. The way they came out, they were so good. And like you mentioned, I mean, those first half numbers are insane, and some of them I think were a little, better than what they will be normally. But also, it's not super often that you have 6 of your starters slumping at the same time. Teams are meant to withstand 1 or 2 of their guys slumping, but that's, 2/3 of your lineup right there, all slumping. Um, with that being said, I expect positive regression from that offense. I do expect it to stable out at some point. I mean, they have a, plus 115 run differential, so they've been good both offensively and defensively. And I mean, I look at these numbers, they've got 50 or so, runs against better than the Dodgers. So like some of these teams that are in that bubble, and I think at this point you can include the Padres and the Dodgers. You can look at the Reds. Like I'd say the Cubs right now are still at the top or near the top of that list because I mean, if it wasn't for the Brewers having done what they did, they would still be sitting high and mighty atop that division, and we wouldn't even be talking about them as a wild card team.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a really interesting year. Besides the Brewers, going on this hot streak and running away with this
Mm-hmm.
division, all those other National League playoff teams are really close to each other record wise.
Yeah.
They're all within, like the Phillies, Padres, Cubs, and Dodgers are all within 1 win of each other. And then the Mets and the Reds are only 4 or 5 wins away. Um, so it's really exciting outside of the fact that be, beyond the Reds who are on the outside looking in, and then the Mets are like the first team in. Those two could go either way at this point. Other than that, there's not really a race. The Cardinals are only 3.5 back, but they're a 500 team. They sold at the deadline. They have a negative run differential. I don't really expect the Cardinals to make a run. So I feel like we kind of know who the playoff teams are. It's just a matter of where they're going to finish. And to me, that's really interesting. The Padres and Dodgers, we'll get into that in a little bit, but like that's a really tough division race right now. Um, The Brewers, like I said, have run away with the Central because of how well they've played. In the East, the Phillies have now opened up a 5 game lead on the Mets because of how poorly the Mets have played, really. Um, so, we talked about the Cubs. I'm not going to go too deep on the Mets. I do think the Mets are a better team than what they've been, similar to the Yankees. So I kind of do think that the Mets will end up being that last wild card spot. And so our playoff picture is almost set, and it's a bunch of teams that spend a lot of money, and then it's the Brewers on top of all of them. So I think that's kind of interesting. The Cubs, I really do think they line up with anyone in the National League. I think any of these teams, you hit them at the wrong time, and they're going to be a tough team to play. And I think the Cubs are right in that conversation. Absolutely.
There's a weird part of me that, again, we talked about it last week, but it's like I look at the playoff teams. The Brewers are the least scary to me come playoff time. Like
Right.
genuinely, I look at the rest of this playoff picture and I'm like, man, I don't want to play any of them. But then it's like, but do I want to play the first seed? Like they haven't lost in 2 weeks. Like
Right.
it's just, yeah, it's a bizarre playoff picture in the National League right now.
Yeah, and it'll only become muddier before it gets clearer, right? And so, as we wait until late August and early September, the waters are going to get pretty muddy, and then the picture will become clear. But let's go from one team in second place, talking about that in sort of a negative sense, and talk about another team in second place, and talk about that in a different, more positive sense, because sometimes if you are driving along the road and you think you're going pretty steady, objects in the rearview mirror are closer than they appear, and sometimes that's actually true. And the Guardians of Cleveland may be just a team that just exactly fits that description for their division leader Tigers. They may be closer than they appear. They appear 6 games out of first place. And when you're a team like the Tigers, who wins pretty consistently, that can feel like a pretty safe lead. But the Guardians are feeling a little different right now. They attempted to sell off a couple pieces. They successfully sold off a couple pieces at the trade deadline. No one knew what to make of them after that. But the pieces that have stuck around have really stepped up and has led to a situation where the Guardians find themselves to be a team that everyone's talking about as the next one ready to hit, get shot out of a cannon into the race here. So my first question is for the Guardians. Can they legitimately threaten the Tigers in the AL Central, or will this stretch prove to be short-lived and the wild card is going to be their best shot?
I kind of think, this has been a fun run for the Guardians, and the Tigers, on the flip side, have not played super well lately. Uh, and yet they still have the biggest division lead in the American League over second place. So I think that just tells you what the state of the first half of the season was. And, you don't want to ever feel like it's locked up if you're a Tigers fan. I think you want to see more urgency and everything. But at the end of the day, I do think the Tigers are a better team. I think they'll be able to hold that lead. I know we talk about run differential a lot. The Tigers are a plus 76. The Guardians are a minus 22. So, I think that kind of speaks to how well these teams have played overall this season, despite what's happened recently. I do think, and maybe this is your next point, I do think the Guardians have played well enough to get themselves into the wild card conversation. They're only a half game behind the Yankees right now for the third wild card spot. Um, but yeah, they're like the Rangers are also still in the conversation, but they've been playing so bad. I think the Guardian, it's very similar to the National League. You have the teams that have been there all year, and then you've got that team from Ohio kind of peskily sticking around. So credit to the Guardians, but I do feel like the Tigers still have a safe lead in that division.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The Tigers are still a good team, and it's a sizable enough lead. Like obviously we've seen, more shocking things happen, but I just don't see the Tigers having the type of collapse it would take for the, Guardians to pass them. I mean, even if the Tigers go, 500 the rest of the way, they're still going to have a pretty dang good record. Like, you know what I mean? Looking at the season as a whole, it's like they're going to still have a tough record to beat. So I think the Tigers win it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, being half a game back of playoffs, they're right there, and the Yankees have their work cut out for them for sure.
Yeah, and look, while we're talking about the Guardians, let's talk about somebody who is having a pretty underrated season, I think. And this is a guy who's always talked about as being one of the more underrated players of his generation, I think, because of where
Hmm.
he plays and because of all that. But um, let's talk about Jose Ramirez a little bit. J-Ram, he's having a really nice year, even by his own standards. Like, his standards are pretty high for what a nice year might look like, and even by his own standards, he's having a good one. He's on pace for his highest OPS since 2018. The 2020 shortened season accepted from that. It was a little bit higher than where he's pacing right now, but basically, it's been a long time since he's played this well and hit the ball this well. And he's also, as of today, when we're recording this, tied for first in the majors in stolen bases with 35. And so he's doing all the J Ram things still. He's hitting the ball really well. He's still stealing those bases, and he's playing a nice third base. So I just wanted to talk about him a little bit, and what you guys see in Jose Ramirez's game that might propel the Guardians to take over that third wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
Jose
mean,
Ramirez. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
no, you go first.
Jose Ramirez has long been, like you said, one of the underrated stars of this league. I know Aaron Boone came out and said, I don't think he's underrated because we all know how great he is. And maybe that's true in the MLB clubhouses. But I think general fans, despite knowing his name, despite the fact that he's like always an all-star and he's always in, like the discussion for Silver Slugger, Gold Glove, all these things, I still think, yeah, he's absolutely underrated. I think the AL MVP race is Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh, 1 and 2. But I think Jose Ramirez has played well enough to be right back in that conversation where he seemingly is in like sneaky top five every year. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's just a well-rounded player. He's obviously the best third baseman in the National League, probably all of or I mean, in the American League, probably in all of baseball. Um, and I mean, this is a guy. If you're a Guardians fan, he's got to be up there for all-time favorite player. A guy who has stuck around, took a team-friendly deal. Not many guys do that. Not many guys get to stick around on a team that historically doesn't pay their players very much. And he just keeps turning out these MVP caliber seasons. And honestly, like we're talking a couple more really good years away from him being a Hall of Famer. So I don't know if many people clock Jose Ramirez as Hall of Fame material, but he absolutely is in that conversation, and credit to him.
Yeah, no, 100%. And in our off season kind of like breakdowns of the divisions, we talked about Cleveland as this team that feels inevitable almost. It was kind of like the Brewers in a sense where it's like we don't have to be that impressed with their roster because at some point they're probably going to be in the playoff, hunt or race come the end of the year. And I think it's honestly, a lot of that is because of Ramirez. Like he has been like this pillar of consistency for so long. And, his ability to kind of do everything, I think really keeps the Guardians right there every year. You know, through the ups and the downs of a talented roster to a more depleted roster, he's right there just chugging along, like you said, putting up MVP like numbers. So, um, yeah, mad props to him, and he's a stud.
Look at us spending an entire top of show talking about the Central Divisions, huh? What
Can
about
I
that?
make can I make one more point about the Guardians?
Yes.
Um, yeah, I made this note, so I don't want to waste my research.
Oh
But
no.
yeah, like I said, part of the reason why I don't expect them to make a run at the division, and honestly, it's a long shot for them to be a wild card, even in the wild card, is because um, they have 42 games remaining, and 18 of them are against some combination of the Rangers, Mariners, Red Sox, and Tigers. So those are
Mm.
three teams in the playoffs and another team like kind of right behind you. And then another 11 of them are against the Rays and the Royals, who, despite their records, are still putting up fights against teams, are still trying to win ball games. I'm not saying that the Guardians can't win a lot of those games. It's an uphill climb, and it's not going to be easy, especially 6 against the Tigers, who they are 6 back. So that could be a huge couple of series for them, or it could just really be meaningless. But um, I think that plays into their playoff odds, despite being only a half game out in the wild card and 6 game out in the division.
Yeah, absolutely. Schedule at this point in the year, schedule has to be taken into account because we are so close, and it's starting to get to the point where those teams on the bubble, every game does matter. The thing about baseball is that for a long time during the season, not every game matters. But now, at this point, when you're on the bubble of a wild card, every game starts to matter, and so it's important to take that into account. But all right, so that is that'll do for Central Division talk for today. I think it's good. But yeah, we wanted to give a shout out to those teams because they are very, very noteworthy for that. So going on to our next segment, which is one of our favorite segments, which is Fan Corner. This is a space where the three of us get to fan out a little bit. We always like to give some love to the stories going on around the league and the teams around the league and the players around the league, but we also love to talk about the teams we know best. So we're going to do that now. So let us start with the Red Sox of Boston with Drew.
Yeah, I think mine will be probably the most pessimistic of the 3 fan corner segments today, but tough week for the Red Sox. They had 3 games against the Padres and then 3 games against the Astros. They only won 1 in each series. And some pretty concerning pitching performances were mixed in there, including Garrett Crochet's first true bad start against the Astros. Lucas Giolito against the Padres just completely melted down, walked 6 guys. And then Brian Bayo also, he didn't pitch horrible, but he didn't really do enough to keep us in the game against the Padres as well. So, not what you want when you're playing teams that are going to be playoff teams and you're trying to kind of measure yourself against them. You would have liked a better showing. However, the 2 games we won, we looked great. We scored a lot of runs. We didn't give up a lot of runs. Dustin May had his first really good outing as a Red Sox. Walker Buehler had a pretty good outing against the Padres, which was maybe the most shocking thing of the season. And we can talk more about that Padres Red Sox series a little bit, and I'm sure Matt will bring it up. But so I'm not too down because, like I said, these are 2 playoff teams we just played against. They were both on the road. It's tough times. And we're still, at the end of the day, we're still in a playoff spot. We haven't really lost too much ground because the teams around us were kind of losing at the same time as us. So I'm not feeling too bad, as bad as the week was, because we just talked about the Guardians schedule being tough. The Red Sox schedule really is it really got a lot easier after this week. Not many playoff teams, and the ones that we do play, we play the Yankees, I think, a couple more times, and they have been rough lately, and we tend to do well against them. And then we play the Tigers and the Blue Jays like way late in the season, where it's possible that their division is wrapped up and they're not really, playing all their best players and all that. So all those factors combined, I feel good about the Red Sox. I still think this is a playoff team. But what I've seen from the last week makes me realize this is not a playoff contender. It's like they can make it if they have, the right game plan or whatever. They can win some, but I don't really expect much. I just don't think the starting pitching is deep enough for them to make a real run in the playoffs. But after the last several years, I never thought I'd be this type of fan, but I will take a playoff berth. I will be happy just to make it to the dance and then have another good offseason where we add some starting pitching depth and we maybe add, maybe extend Alex Bregman, see what happens there. But for now, yeah, just not the best week, but also I'm not going to get too broken up about it.
Yeah, you read my mind. I was going to ask you. I know at the beginning of the season, your answer might have been different, but I was going to ask you, considering all that's happened, this season, would you take it if they just made
I
it?
have, yeah, I
So
would,
yeah,
because they've been the main characters of baseball this year, for better or for worse, with all the Devers drama, with Roman Anthony being the number one prospect and making his debut. There's been a lot of attention on the Red Sox, and just like such a bad start to the year. To be in the place that they're in now, I give them a lot of credit. But yeah, I mean, going into the season, we thought American League World Series contender. I'm not really thinking that anymore, but at the same time, if we get hot at the right time, we can hang with anyone. So we'll see.
boy, I started laughing in the middle of that because, boy, was that Netflix doc a year early or what?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
come
no
on,
kidding.
come on. You're going to be close in the race this year. Like, you got the new guys coming up. You had all everything. Man, was that doc the year earlier? What? All right. Okay, so let's go on to San Diego and to Matt. Let's talk about the Padres next, and then yeah, we can talk a little bit about the podcast on podcast violence that took place since the last time we talked.
Yeah, dude, it's beautiful over here. It's great times over in San Diego. We are 14-3 over our last 17 games. We have been getting absolutely trolled by Dodgers Twitter all year after Mike Schilt came out in one of our post games and was like, he seemed pretty flustered and he's like, well, joke's on them because by the end of the year we're gonna rattle off, 4, 5, 6, 7, series wins in a row and we're gonna be in a pretty good spot. And they're like, we've won 5 in a row, I believe. And now we got the Dodgers and hopefully we can make it 6 to really, really finish it off here. But Dave, we're in first place, man. You can't really ask for much more, especially as a team who's been watching the Dodgers be first place for so long, it seems. Um, it is it is fun, even if it's short-lived. It is fun to see us be here at the top. Um, so yeah, it's been good. We've been playing good baseball. The acquisitions that AJ Preller made. Um, sans JP Sears have been really solid contributors for us so far. Um, and I still have hope for JP Sears that maybe Niebla can figure something out for him. But yeah, it's been awesome. There's so many pessimistic Padres fans, and we get so much hate from the Dodgers that seeing all of this happen just feels very like rewarding. Because also it's like, dude, anytime a team can take the Dodgers out, and you'll speak to this in a second here, Dallas, but it's like anytime you can do something to best the Dodgers these days, it feels like it's the world against them. Like it feels like you have the whole league at your back. And that's how it's been as a Padre fan the last few days. It's just like everyone's been like rooting for us. I was watching Giants fans on Twitter talking about like we just want to lose this series so we can see the Padres get ahead of the Dodgers. And like, that's how you know they got that real hate for the Dodgers because it's like they're rooting to lose to a different division rival to see the downfall of a different division rival. So it feels good, man. It's been fun. There's not much else to say. It's been fun, fun baseball. Small little things that are a bummer. Michael King had some discomfort following his start against the Red Sox, and he went back on the IL today. So that's a bummer. Was really hoping we'd be getting him kind of working into this rotation and figuring out his spot for playoffs, but that'll have to wait a little longer. The consensus MLB, prospect pipeline farm system thing came out. Uh, Padres are 30 out of 30. We have the weakest farm in MLB. I think that is hilarious because inevitably, no, we won't. But it seems like every year this happens, and every year we go to the trade deadline, and it's like, oh, they don't have the pieces to go get these marquee players, and then it turns out we do. So I don't know. I feel like I'm in one of those weird like fever dreams where I'm just like nothing matters. We're winning. Like we're a winning baseball team at this point.
If you're a buyer at the trade deadline and your farm system is ranked 30th, it's like, who cares? It's 2 weeks removed from the trade deadline, you know.
But of course. But it's funny because it feels like this happens every year, and next year it's going to be like, well, the Padres don't have any talent in their minor leagues, and then AJ Preller's going to go find some stud pitcher to go trade for inevitably because Suarez will leave or something, and he needs his sixth closer of the year. So who knows, man? But it's all good right now. We're feeling good.
Nice. All right. Well, let's talk next about the Angels. The team that gave the Padres a little assist. The Padres had to do a lot of winning, but of course they needed a little help. And they gave the Padres the assist they needed. I usually don't go very long on this part of the show because, it hasn't really deserved it. But this will probably be my,
But
it'll be a
off Dallas.
It'll be a normal length one, but it'll be my longest one probably. So, the best week for the Angels in recent memory, probably. Like they lost a series to the Tigers, which is fine and expected. This week as well, last weekend rather, but they played the Dodgers, and they played them in Anaheim, and Dodger fans really made it a point to fill the stadium with Dodger fans. There were a lot of Dodger fans at all three of those games, and watching them all, whatever they were trying to do, it worked. Like, because it sounded like the Angels were on the road. Like, there was no mistaking the fact that stadium was probably like 60 to 75% Dodger fans at any given time. And so everything was sort of there was a lot of confidence from the Dodgers, despite the fact that they haven't played, their best over the course of the last couple of weeks. I was at a Dodger game a couple weeks last Monday. I went to the Dodger game against the Cardinals, and they lost. And so it was one of those things where, they're coming in with a lot of confidence. Their fans were coming in with a lot of confidence. And so the Angels were they got to be the center of the baseball universe for this series. And I was curious to see what people would see, because now everyone's eyes are on them. What version of the Angels is going to show up, right? There's been a lot of versions of that team this year, a really bad version, an okay version, and a version that can play with anybody. And so I was curious to see what would happen, and the Angels really stepped up. I couldn't be any more thrilled with how the series went as a whole. I have no complaints. Like, it was one of those where everything was going right, and when you got down to like the last game, if you're not an Angels fan who's been hurt, you kind of just felt like they were going to find a way to win. And by the time you got to the third game, so obviously winning against the Dodgers when they're at this state feels good for a lot of reasons. Some of those reasons are negative and petty and mean. And I want to focus on the reasons that it was good in like a positive way. Because we all know that, I said it at the top of the show, Dodgers fans can suck it. And, their fans filled our stadium, and I'm very happy that all of them drove home every night and were mad. Every single person that showed up had to make the drive home mad, and it made me very happy. But what I want to talk about is a couple of reasons why this series felt nice for Angels fans that non-Angels fans might not think about. And so first reason is, like, for 12 years, everyone in the baseball world has laughed at the Angels and hated them, and rightfully at times and cruelly at others. Like, everywhere I go, when I tell people I'm an Angels fan, the first thing that they tell me is they're sorry. And I'm never sorry. I'm never sorry to be an Angels fan. Not for a single second have I been sorry to be an Angels fan. I think it's been, if you're watching every day, it can be a bit of a slog the last, decade. But there's always been something fun with Trout, Pujols, Ohtani for a time. All this stuff. There's always been something nice about being an Angels fan, and that's something that people never understood my perspective on that. And so after a decade plus of everyone in the baseball world laughing at them and hating them and actively rooting against them because they're mad at them for crimes against baseball. It was nice for one series to feel like the entire baseball world had our back because it's been a very, very long time since I felt that way, like that everyone was rooting for us, and it made me feel nice. And so that's one reason. And then the second reason is it was about, for me, the reason it felt good was the specific players who stepped up and won those games for the Angels. In Monday's game, it was Jose Soriano shutting the Dodgers lineup down for 6 innings. That helped them win that game. Zach Neto in that game hit 2 home runs. And on Tuesday, Christian Moore came in as a pinch hitter and laid down an incredibly insanely good bunt that set up the situation for the walk-off that Joe Adell would deliver. And on Wednesday, it was Logan O'Hoppe with the go-ahead single that won them the game. And one thing I forgot to mention on Tuesday was Neto's triple play, right? So he showed up again on Tuesday. And so I've cited all of these players over the course of the season on this show at different times as reasons why I think, as someone who watches the Angels every day, almost, the reasons why I think that the next competitive Angels team might be closer than we thought, than we thought at the beginning of the season. And it was really nice for me to watch those specific players step up when everybody was watching them so that they could see too. And maybe everybody else can recognize the fact that maybe not to the degree that a fan would say so try and be optimistic and keep hope alive. But everyone can watch and say like, maybe they're cooking something over there. Maybe we should keep an eye on what's going on over there because these players are young. They are real for the most part, and they can really step up and get it done. So that's why it felt good for Angel fans, specifically me, and maybe a couple of reasons you might not know other than the obvious reasons. But yeah, good times for sure. It was great. Felt that support. So it was fun. And when they get swept by Colorado in September, I don't want to hear it. Remember this. Remember when you liked them, and when it was fun.
Got to remember the good old days while they're here.
It's just absolutely hilarious that this Dodgers team that was, after winning the division for whatever, 13 of the last 14 years or whatever it is, won the World Series last year, had arguably the best offseason of any team. We were so scared of them. We thought they could win 120 games, and they went 0 for 6 against the Angels this year. That's just awesome.
A season sweep of the Dodgers. The Orioles won 2 series against the Angels. The White Sox won 1. The Pirates won 1, but the Dodgers couldn't do it in 2 tries. So, no matter what else happens over the course of the season, that happened for sure. And you can never take that away from me. So, all right. As always, we appreciate the opportunity to fan out. But let's get some, predictions on wax here. This is something else we like to do. Our next segment, our locked in segment, which is where we make some predictions for the next week of play. And so let's talk about our predictions from the last show. And so we'll start with Drew here. So the last show was right before we recorded the day before the Kershaw-Scherzer matchup, potentially, and potentially the last one between them that will ever be. And so Drew's prediction was that matchup will live up to the hype with both turning in vintage performances. So let's check in and how'd that go, and then tell us your prediction for this week.
I'm going to say it was like a half right. They both pitched fairly well. They didn't give up too many runs, but neither one went out there and, I wouldn't call it a vintage performance from either of them. Now Scherzer pitched today, and I think gave a pretty vintage performance against the Cubs. But um, I also want to issue a correction on this. Last week, I had said that this was their first time they matched up since like 2008 when they like randomly did. I don't know why I think I saw a tweet or something that made me think that. It's not true. That was like the fifth or sixth time they've matched up against each other. So correction there. But um, yeah, I mean it was cool to see, and it was cool for both of them to pitch pretty well. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was a full on vintage performance from either one.
All right. And then what do you got for us this week?
This week, I'm gonna go with the Padres playing the Dodgers this week in LA. Obviously, as we just said, Dodgers coming off a humiliating sweep at the hands of the Angels. Now the Padres, who just passed them, are coming to town. I think the Padres are gonna ride the momentum, and so are the Dodgers, just in the opposite way. And I think the Padres are gonna sweep the Dodgers and put up a 4-game lead in the division.
We have to see it. We have to see it.
I'm
It
doing
has to
that
continue.
because Matt could
0
not.
and 7.
Matt would not be allowed to predict such things as a Padres fan. That's just a little
Correct.
too out there. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and do it because the Dodgers just seem to be flailing. Padres are riding high. Anything can happen in baseball. They're two good teams, but I just feel like momentum is shifting. And I know Michael King was supposed to start tomorrow night, and he's no longer doing it. But who cares? It was the Angels just swept them. Anyone could sweep them. No offense
The
to the
Angels won.
Angels, but
The Angels won. The Angels won a game where Kyle Hendricks was the starter against Shohei Ohtani. Anything can
right,
happen.
yeah. So
Anything can happen.
that's my prediction.
All right. Well, there
I,
you go.
I would be lying
We'll
if I
have
said that didn't have me in full body sweats right now.
Well, like
Well,
I
you
said,
lose
you
nothing.
couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't your prediction, so you don't have to like wear anything if it's wrong.
Well, I
You
have to
didn't say
wear
it.
what Dodgers fans will say to us.
Oh well,
Yeah, but
yeah, but
they can't go back and find footage of you saying we're gonna sweep them.
right,
Let
right.
the record
That's
Wasn't
show
true.
you?
My
you're
digital
prop.
footprint will be clean here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to keep it clean. All right, so let's talk about Matt's last week prediction. His prediction last week, as we say in English correctly, and that prediction was that the Padres would win the series versus the Red Sox. We talked about that, but talk a little bit more about that series if you want. You might have saved talk about that series for right now, but go ahead and go off.
Well, it was funny because famously on this little show of ours, I predict the wrong things pretty frequently. And so I was like, you know what? I'm feeling good. We've been playing good, all this stuff. We're gonna beat the Red Sox, And I didn't predict a sweep. I didn't predict anything, too bold, but I was like, two winning franchises going against each other, and I was like, I think we could pull off two. We're getting King back, Pavetta's pitching. It seemed good. And then that first game, we lost like really badly. I was just like, oh goodness, like I did it again. And you know what? It turns out I just for a little bit because we turned it around and we ended up winning that series and big dubs for us, I guess. I don't really know how, but yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say. Like I didn't feel like the Red Sox played poorly. I didn't feel like we necessarily dominated either. It was fun baseball, in my opinion. But I got too
Yeah.
late twice.
Uh, it was kind of interesting. I thought how you made that prediction, but we also talked about what we kind of thought how the series would go. And we were dead wrong on that because
Yeah,
both of us were like, Pavetta versus Walker Buehler is going to be an easy Padres win. And that was the
yeah,
one where,
revenge game, the whole
yeah,
bit.
that's the one where Pavetta did not do super well. And Walker Buehler didn't give up any runs. And Connor Wong, who had 2 RBIs all year, he was 0 for 30 something with runners in scoring position. His only RBIs were on sacrifice flies. Hit a 3-run double in that game, uh, which surpassed his whole season RBI total in one swing.
Huge.
So that was a 10-2 final. And then the middle game was the most exciting game.
Yeah,
Roman Anthony tied the game with a double off of Suarez in the
yeah.
ninth, and then the Padres ended up winning in extras because the Red Sox forget how to play baseball in extra innings. Um, and so that was 5-4 Padres, and then the last one, Padres won 6-2. The Red Sox threatened later in the game, but not enough to really make it super close. So by my by my math, you know, Padres won two of the games. Red Sox had the better run differential in the series, so a pretty evenly matched series overall.
That feels
Yeah.
like that's been kind of the Padres thing this year is like we'll accidentally let go of a game and get shelled, but then most games we're probably winning by like a run or two, at most like a small handful, because we end up just turning it over to this like super bullpen so early, and our offense is very like streaky in games. We're not one of those teams that's going to score once an inning. Like we may score three in one inning and zero the rest, and like that's just how we play. Um, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun. You guys, you say you forget how to play in extras, but I think people also just forget we've got the craziest bullpen, truly. Like our guy coming in the 10th inning to sweep up this game, I believe was David Morgan. He's like our sixth reliever in the bullpen, has like a 1.6 ERA. Like we've just got some crazy dudes in this bullpen. So it was a fun series. All that to say, I thought it was a fun series. Hopefully you did too, even if it was technically a series loss. Um,
Well, it was
Definitely, it
fun to
felt like
watch
a playoff atmosphere.
because I obviously hear you talk about the Padres every week. You hear me talk about the Red Sox, but like I don't watch every Padres game.
Hmm.
So I was struck by the Super Bowl pen. It's just like, damn, like every guy coming out just has nasty stuff, even if they don't have the best numbers. It's just nasty. Like whereas, the Red Sox have a pretty decent bullpen this year, and I feel nervous after like three guys, basically. Like there's three guys that I feel pretty good about coming out of the pen, and other than that,
On
I
the flip
don't.
side,
And
there are only two of our bullpen pitchers who I do not trust, and one of them still has decent numbers. I just don't trust him.
yeah, and I just want to shout out Xander Bogaerts for really playing well lately, and he played great in that series. People were calling it a Xander Bogaerts revenge series. Uh, I don't think we should use the term revenge just when you're playing your old team. He has no, there is no bad blood between Xander and the Red Sox. He was great for us. We love him. He signed a contract that is pretty ludicrous and good for him with the Padres. So like, no bad blood. Good. I root for him every time. So good for him.
All right. So let's talk about your predictions for this week. What do you have for us? What are you putting on the line for this week? And you're on mute again. This is
Technical difficulties. I don't know how that happened. I didn't even cough that time. Um, I know Drew mentioned earlier that the Mets were going to take that last wild card spot. My prediction here is I actually think by the end of this week, the Mets are going to be multiple games out from that third spot. Um, I believe, right now I think they're a half game above or a game above the Reds, and I think the Reds are honestly a better team at this point, like playing wise at least. And uh, Hensley had a blown save, or I don't know if it's considered a blown save when it's in the eighth, a blown hold, I guess.
I think they still
He
do credit blown saves in the later innings. I think,
Okay.
but either way, he
Well,
blew it.
so he blew it. They had a lead, and they brought in Hensley, and they were warming up Diaz, and it didn't even matter. Um, and so I'm like, they've just been playing really bad baseball. They were winning games early this year on the back of some pretty crazy and, in my opinion, not sustainable pitching. They had some guys who were pitching really well, and it just seems like this was a team that was winning when they shouldn't have been. And I feel like we're finally seeing that. This is not a well-built team, in my opinion. Um, it has some star power, certainly. Um, but I just don't see them as a well-built team. So I have them being multiple games out of that third wild card spot. I could see them even falling behind some of those other bubble teams in the NL. I just I don't see it for them, man. I think that they're gonna have a rough end of this season.
All right. Well, you heard it here
Just for
first.
those
Mets.
for those keeping track, the Brewers, or I mean the Reds have to play the Brewers, and then I
But
believe
but the Mets will
somebody
be
was here.
playing their series against Seattle,
Yeah,
so
and then the
they're
Mets
both
have the
going against real hot
Nationals.
teams.
Yeah, and then the Mets play the Nationals, and the Reds come to Anaheim to play the Angels. So good
All
to
right.
keep track
Well,
of.
we helped out the Padres. Now let's see if we can help out just Matt again. Let's see if we can just keep
Yeah, I
the
just need a
keep
personal favor here.
keep the personal favors rolling here. But all right. So okay. So good predictions. We'll check in on them again next week. I hear tell before we move to end the show here. I hear tell we have a update on our home run draft standings. So it was hidden
It's
from
good to
me
see.
in the yeah hidden from me in the show rundown. But I am curious as to what's going on.
Yeah, I wanted to hide it because we haven't done it in a while. And I just wanted to give an update. Just as a reminder, it's -3, or every 3 home runs given up by the pitching staff is -1 home run for your total. And I think if we do this same draft next year, we gotta adjust that. um, Granted, Matt has been screwed by some injury stuff where Mike Trout is like, he only has 3 home runs on days where he's playing the outfield, but he has 20 home runs total.
Right.
Aaron Judge is, pushing 40 home runs. Only 25 of them have come from the outfield. So some bad luck in that sense from Matt. And he's sitting at a
Isan
cool,
Paredes is just out for the
yeah,
season.
yeah. Although I
Christian
heard he's
Campbell's
trying to rehab.
struggling in AAA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So some bad luck going on with Matt's team. He's sitting at -40 home runs on the season. So that's the
I
lowest we've
predicted like
seen.
-20 something.
Uh, and I'm at -11. So still like probably the worst
Oh,
number we've
wow.
seen so far, but Matt is still
Wow.
29 worse than me at the moment. And I think it's just going to keep growing because he's got multiple just like they're going to be zeros from here on out
Right.
in his lineup.
Right.
So
Right.
uh, bad luck. I think we'll play it through to the end of the season, but I don't think it's Matt's year for the home run draft.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. But we'll let that sit speak for itself. An incredible, hilarious result to this draft. Like it's better even almost than it would be if it was like really competitive. Like that it turned out this way. But yeah, so good. All right, but let's end the show as we always end our MLB show with our dingers and stingers. That's one good thing, a dinger, and one bad thing, a stinger from the world of sports this week. So we open this part up to different sports. And so let's start with the stingers, and let's start with Matt.
Yeah, my stinger this week has to do with Matt Stafford and just his whole off-season narrative. I've pretty consistently been in the like I'm not worried about him camp of all of this. Stafford, historically has sat a lot of the off seasons he's been with us, but usually that's just due to him being, a older vet. We want to keep him on ice until the season, essentially, because he takes a beating during the season. He puts his body out there and he puts it on the line. Um, but it just feels a little different this year. Usually he's still able to get out there and get some work in with the team and do these sorts of things. And right now he's done some individual work, and then they predicted he was going to be back, and then he didn't, practice in that game or in that practice, and he's been out of pretty much all of our off-season stuff at this point. They've got this like crazy, they're calling it like the Immortal trailer or something. It's some trailer that got pulled up at our practice thing, and he sits in there the entire time, doesn't come out. God knows what's happening in that trailer. But right now, I mean, Jimmy G's been getting every first team rep. He's been the one running with the ones, and it's like I love that we have Jimmy G as our backup. I think Jimmy G provides a solid floor for our offense, given our talent and Sean McVay. But the thing that makes the Rams special is Stafford's ability to kind of make things happen in the clutch. Um, in the toughest moments, there's not really many players I would trust more than Matthew Stafford at this point. And I would almost say the exact opposite about Jimmy Garoppolo. He'll win you some blowouts if you can handle it, but you put him in a tough game where he has to thread the needle down the field, it's probably not going to be the most accurate ball. Um, so I don't know. I'm just a little worried at this point. I am like, I've had to tell myself like it would be short sighted to not have concern at this point. Obviously, we have a few more weeks. Things can change. There could be some black magic happening in that trailer. Um, Fingers crossed, because the last report I saw was that Stafford had to get an epidural, which, if for those of you unaware, that's what pregnant women receive in their back.
Right.
So if your back hurts enough that you're getting the same treatment as a pregnant woman, um, you're probably not doing great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, look, our best to Matthew Stafford, and I want that trailer investigated for any kind of anything. Send someone in there, independent third party. I want to know what's going on in there.
Just
If
some
they're giving
blood
him,
swapping. He's getting younger blood infused
yeah,
into him.
So the amortal it's called an amortal chamber. I'm looking on their website right now.
sure.
Costs like 200,000, but you can finance it for 3,000 a month with 10% deposit. Nothing
That's probably what the
crazy.
Rams are doing.
Can you give
Yeah,
first round picks for it?
it's I assume the Rams are financing it. Uh, it looks like something straight out of like Iron Man or Tron or something. I'm gonna like we can move forward, but I'm gonna drop this in our show notes so you guys can see this. It's kind of scary.
I want the Captain America Super Serum 10 investigated. Okay, so let's move on to Drew's stinger for the week, if you would.
Yeah, so my stinger, it's kind of a how should I put this? Like it's a potential stinger. Um,
Mm,
and this is the rumors coming out about the MLB negotiating broadcast stuff.
yeah,
With ESPN was, they do Sunday Night Baseball. It was announced earlier this year that like that's dead. That's not going to happen after this year. Now they're kind of talking to ESPN again. But the recent news that came out today is that a lot of potential streamers and networks could be involved in MLB broadcasts. And that may seem like good news to some people because growing the game, it gets more eyes on it to have these broadcasts. But I think it's actually um, like it may let a few people watch like one or two baseball games that they never would have watched in their life. But for baseball fans who like to watch as many games as possible, it's just becoming harder and harder. You have to have subscriptions to so many different things. As a Red Sox fan, like I don't even have the option to get their channel here, so I have to get the MLB TV subscription, which I love doing. That's fine. But then I'm blacked out of national games, so I can't watch Apple TV games unless I have a subscription. The Roku games are free, but like Fox sometimes has games. ESPN will have games, as I mentioned, and now they're talking about other places like Peacock and Netflix potentially even joining the party. So um, it just makes it more confusing and more complicated to watch baseball for
yeah,
baseball fans at for the benefit of people who might not even care about baseball to begin with. And I get wanting to grow the game and get an audience that you may not have had in the past. But to me, that's you don't just like throw a game on Netflix and all of a sudden you have all these new fans. The game has grown from, the roots of, you know, your dad shows you baseball and you like baseball because your dad did, or your friends at school did, or whatever happens where you just fall in love with the game. I don't know if this is gonna do a lot of good in that sense, and it might just make the real fans who are tuning in regardless a little more frustrated.
Yeah, as someone who had to recently try and explain how to watch a baseball team to a friend who was contemplating getting into baseball, this happened to me recently where, my one of my friends came to me and he was like thinking about, we live here in Los Angeles, and he was like, I'm thinking about becoming a Dodgers fan. What do I need to do so I can watch every Dodgers game? And I said,
And you just gave him Elijah's
well,
number.
um, I said, well, it's not going to be easy. And, I let him know, and running down the process of, most of them, they're going to be here, but sometimes because it's the Dodgers, they're on nationally a lot. So you got to try here and here too. And, and explaining that and watching the desire to do this fall from his eyes as I was explaining how to do it. It definitely brought home your point here, as if, there is potential for that to happen. I think. But let's end on the good, because we always like to do. So let's go back to Matt and let's talk about your dinger for the week.
Yeah, so I'm really sticking with Ram stuff this week. It's I didn't want to, kick a happy horse while it was up and happy with the Padres. So
Wait a
Our
minute.
favorite expression. Didn't want to kick a happy horse while it was up and happy. I say that all the time.
yeah, famously, you guys have heard me say that. So I'm sticking with my other team, the Rams, this week. Um, my dinger this week is Willie Lampkin. The average fan, even a lot of hardcore fans, are not going to know who this is. This is a dude out of UNC. He was very early on one of my favorite players in this draft process. I would go and pull up the receipts of me texting my dad this guy's college highlights, but I'm not doing that right now. Um, he was an offensive guard. He is playing center for the Rams. He went undrafted, even though he, in my opinion, was the best player at the Senior Bowl, had the most outstanding tape, all because he is a offensive lineman standing at 5'11", listed, doesn't quite look it, and 290 pounds. He is remarkably small and just has that dog in him. Straight up, like, this dude he dominated. He was the second highest graded player or offensive lineman in, granted, week 1 of the preseason. So, mostly playing against backups. But for an undrafted free agent to come in and dominate like that, playing center, which he hadn't played, he was a guard in college. To me, that shows a lot. And I love I love the NFL draft and the whole process behind it. I get really into it every year, and this was one of those guys who I was high on the whole time. And to see the Rams actually, go and sign this guy who I was super high on, and then to see him start performing like this, and there's talk he's going to make the 53, because if he doesn't, there's no chance he's making it back onto our practice squad. Um, it feels good. It feels good when that, study and research and preparation actually feels like it pays off. Obviously, it doesn't really pay off, but it's just, a pride thing at this point. Um, but I like being right when it comes to my scouting process. So that's my dinger of the week. It's been good. I like this guy. If you want to see a fun player, look up Willie Lampkin at the Senior Bowl. He's hilarious. It's like Puna Ford when he came out. The dude just doesn't look like he should be anywhere near the field, and is way more physical, way stronger, just cares more than the guy across from him, and it absolutely shows up.
Yeah, I don't know what he'll look like for most of the season, but I have no doubt that when he plays against Seattle, he will look like the best center of all time. So I'll know his name because I'll be cursing it, I'm sure, quite a bit.
Well, and we got Puna Ford on the other side too, so you get to see it both ways.
Yeah, two opposite ends of the physical spectrum, sounds like there. But all right, so let's go back to Drew and talk about your dinger for the week.
Yeah, this is another. It's more of an encouraging dinger than like an actual concrete like thing to feel good about. But Alex Bregman this week, he has this new um, collaboration with Sam Adams Brewery out in Boston,
Yeah.
where they made like a commercial with him, and then he has his own beer. It's like Breggy's beer or something like that. Um, that in itself, I don't care. Whatever, have a beer. But that is like that is something someone does when they are part of a city, when they feel like I am part of this community and I want to be, and like the city loves him. And um, I love to see that because I've talked about it before. Like he's on this weird contract. He could just opt in and be on the Red Sox next year and the year after. He's playing so well. I think there's a chance he opts out and tries to test the market for like one last big contract. I just really, really want him to stay on the Red Sox. And honestly, at this point, like seeing the relationship he's had with the young guys like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer, seeing how well he's played for us and been that middle of the order bat that we traded away in Rafael Devers. I just want him here for a long time. I'd like to never see him wear another uniform again, honestly. And I feel like this is the kind of sign where it's like, okay, like how could we let him now? Obviously, we it could happen. I'm not saying it's a sure thing, but like everyone, the fans know, he obviously knows what he means to the city already, and like I just would love to see that come to full fruition. But I love seeing it even though it's not locked in, and it makes me think he wants to be here, and let's just work it out and see what we can do to get that done.
Yeah, it's encouraging signs, at least from his side, right? And so, if there's anything we've learned about the Red Sox front office, is that they are a little bit unpredictable when it comes to this kind
Yeah.
of thing. But it's definitely encouraging to see a guy who might be willing to come to the table with aggressive negotiators like you have upstairs. So, all right, that'll do it for our MLB show this week. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Follow us on Instagram. You can always subscribe to us here if you haven't already. Make sure you like as well. We're going to go out on the image of, what looks like the guy from the new Avatar movie laying in a really
That's actually a
uncomfortable
picture
bed.
of Matthew Stafford.
He's going to be, he's going to be in the new movie. I think as of right now, as I can see here, he'll be in the movie. But yeah, look, you can subscribe to us here, like us here, share us around. We love to spread the love. Hit us in the comments with your takes on the Cubs, on the Guardians, on whatever you'd like. We'd love to have you engage with us. It was a great show. And until next week, take care and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.